Congratulations, everybody. You made it to a whole new year, 2023. So to celebrate, you deserve not a new record, but an old record. Today I decided to look at another sort of slept-on classic, not quite a one-hit wonder, because I don't think it was necessarily like a huge hit record. Certainly their only record, certainly an incredible record. Certainly it's a shame they don't have more records. I'm talking about Forever Fresh. This is 1988 on Tommy Boy Records. Forever Fresh is an MC from Philadelphia, from Winfield specifically, assuming you believe what's in the Runout Groove, where he shouts out the Winfield posse. And he's a little tough to Google and search for because Forever Fresh these days, it's spelled this way, for the number 4 Ever Fresh, is the name of a feminine hygiene product line. So that's what happens if you try to search for him these days. But back in the days in the 80s, he was a great Philly MC who was really slept on and who made an incredible record. Unfortunately, though, just one. Part of the problem might have been that he was on Tommy Boy Records. Now, Tommy Boy Records, of course, has a long line, big hit artists, De La Soul, Naughty by Nature, Natural Elements. But back in the 80s, although De La Soul was in the 80s, but basically, primarily, everybody sort of knew Tommy Boy Records as like Arthur Baker, Steinsky, Africa Bambaataa, dance music, let's set Malcolm X speeches to, computer beeps and bops, and like lots of cutting and pasting, not necessarily scratching with a DJ, although they certainly had, MC, DJ turntables groups like Globe and WizKid and all that kind of sort of thing. But, you really sort of thought of Tommy Boys as kind of more out there dance music, Planet Patrol. That was the kind of thing I think that really came with Tommy Boy Records back in the day. And this guy does not fit this mold. This is much more credible, Philly, ill, talented MC with wordplay and cleverness and a dope voice, and DJs doing ill scratches and sample bass and everything kind of really want from a classic hip-hop record, but not necessarily what you expected from Tommy Boy. So that might have been part of the problem. I mentioned talented DJs, and there's actually 2 on here. And interestingly, they're credited. There's 2 songs as 12-inch, but it's not split by song. If you believe the record labels, DJ Finesse did the def cuts, and JD Supreme did the smooth cuts. I don't even really necessarily know what that means when you listen to the song. Like, it's not clear, like, oh, these are, like, sometimes you could think, okay, maybe sort of doing, like, rubbing the groove kind of thing would be, like, a smooth cut, and some kind of dexterous, turntable flare, crab scratch thing would be the def cuts. It's not really evident which are which here on the song. But DJ Finesse, I believe, was like his regular DJ. If you happen to catch Forever Fresh at a show, it would have been like Forever Fresh and DJ Finesse. And then I believe JD Supreme was basically brought on for this record. He might have done some other stuff with them. I mean, again, they didn't really do other stuff. This is the only record. Whoever did what, though, the results are incredible, so I believe everybody certainly deserves a heap of praise. It's interesting to note there are also producers on here. Casey and Chic, who were sort of like electro hip-hop producers. They had a couple records of their own. They produced a couple other artists. So I don't know how much they did the sound for this. I wouldn't be surprised if like JD Supreme and Finesse actually did a lot of this, again, because it's much more kind of classic hip-hop sample base, and we're going to get into all that. Maybe Forever Fresh had a real hand in what samples he wanted to use. I don't know. I know they're credited as producers, and Finesse and JD Supreme are just credited with the cuts, according to the label, and that's all we have to work with. Speaking of labels, okay, you can see this is a black and white label. That's because this is the promo copy. There are also regular retailed versions, and that would have a sticker cover, which this does not have. It's just a plain sleeve. The full color labels, that blue, kind of faded blue of the Tommy Boy logo, and actually a different track listing, because this has the full vocal versions of both and acapellas for both. But the complete retail version also has instrumentals for both songs, which are not on here. And the acapellas are important because they're possibly these days what this record is best known for. Because if you've never heard Forever Fresh, if you've never heard of Forever Fresh, you don't know DJ Finesse, you don't know like old school, underground Philly artists and stuff like that, you never heard this record, you probably still have heard these samples because they get cut up a lot. Partially because early hip-hop, in the 80s, acapellas are still kind of rare. Here, you get these kind of really choice acapellas with some really famous lines, making rap records because I never dug disco, and definitely if you know like Qbert, Invisible Scratch Pickles, that kind of holy calamity, scream insanity, all you're ever going to be is another big fan of me. That line, which I mean, that's from like Dr. Octagon, Handsome Boy Modeling School, the Bear Witness tracks, like those lines that Qbert uses like crazy come from this record. And the great thing about it now is to hear the actual full record is that everything else absolutely lives up to those little quotes. Like, it's not like, oh, that's a cool line, but then you listen to the record and it's like, well, okay, that's where that line comes from, but it kind of sucks. No, everything on here is classic. So the A side, not this important distinction, is I Got a Good Thing. And yes, this is 1988. Super Lover C and Casanova Rudd also came out with the record I Got a Good Thing in 1988. You know, when you've got two records with some of the same samples, not all the same samples, and the same title and all that, like, and you don't really know, you know, if you're just a fan, just someone looking to buy a record, like, you're probably going to go with the known artist, not the unknown artist. So that probably also hurt Forever Fresh. But they are very distinctly different. Like, they both use the same James Brown vocal sample on the hook, obviously. The main sample has that kind of funky boom, 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 ba-doo-doo-doo, that like King T used on The Coolest, which also came out the same year. Again, it's one of these things like who came out first, who came out last. Let's use it on kind of a faster, hyper kind of track. It's more energy. Although King T wasn't exactly like, especially on his first album, wasn't exactly like slow G-funk kind of stuff either. And that's a classic record. So again, if you're picking, it's easy to sort of say, okay, well, I won't choose the Forever Fresh. But absolutely, there's no reason to pick. Super Lover C, Forever Fresh, and King T all put out classic, must-have 1988 records. I think I actually prefer the B-side, the Urban Sound Surgeon. It's kind of more playful, even the title kind of suggests that. But again, without being kiddie and jokey, it's kind of more eclectic and wild. It's got that do-do-do-do-do-do, that like Busy Bee used on Converse, you know, that really kind of classic atmospheric horn sample. They use a little bit of that. You know, like Cool G Rap used it on, not Cars, Trilogy of Terror. And then the main sample, though, is sort of the same one that Miss Melody used for Live on Stage. But again, this doesn't sound like Live on Stage, which is also another must-have record. That actually did come later. There's no doubt that this came before Live on Stage. They're using The Warriors' Can You Dig It, which a lot of rappers have done, meaning the movie The Warriors, you know, where he gives that speech, can you dig it, like the head of the gangs before they go out to kill people. Like 1 million people sampled this. There's just a lot going on here. And that's one of the things that works. There's so much going on here. Again, you got 2 DJs doing the cuts, ill production, creative rhymes, which is creative on multiple levels. Like, he's got a great voice, he's got a great flow, he's got clever lyrics. Like, every element is on fire and just clicking, and it's fantastic. So I'm going to play some clips. You can see this is like a must-have. And this is record like it's not rare because it's Tommy Boy Records in like 88. So everything they put out, like there's 1 million copies. So this is the kind of record you could buy now on like eBay or Discogs for like, you know, $3-4. And you should. Quick correction. I should actually look at these records before I talk about them. The instrumentals are also on the promo version. My bad. But anyway, here we go. This is I Got a Good Thing.
Can you dig it?